The second point is, if you accept the claim from the foreign power, you're going to have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars checking that there's no surveillance devices on that plane, you don't know where it's been, and so this is a proposal that's going to presumably spend hundreds of
No, but we actually said any deal we see, both sides are going to have to. Strongly for their respective countries and their respective citizens.
grave recession fears. President Trump will likely be asked about all of this when he signs an executive order later this morning that he says will be to lower prescription drug prices. Let's get over to the White House right now. CNN's Wayne Dream is standing by. Bring all of this down for us right now as we look so far. I mean, this is a major breakthrough between the United States and China. Months outside in Geneva this weekend, Secretary of State announced in a press conference that both countries have agreed to dramatically scale back these tariffs for at least 90 days. Now, other countries will have certain days for that's just 2 days from now. We are hearing from this administration much friendlier rhetoric toward China, much more positive and optimistic view of how we're going to continue to promote in intercountry statewide relationship. Listen how we put it.
The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Reeder said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that.
Okay, as you mentioned, we're already seeing global markets kind of buoyed by this news, and there's no doubt that the president and his White House are going to spin this deal as a major win for them. But again, I just want to highlight how big of a deal this is and how much of a change of posture this is from the Trump administration, particularly, again, given their repeated insistence on needing to hold China accountable. Now, and I also think, just to make clear, that the inflationary reaction we've seen to some of the president's tariff policies, particularly as it relates to China, and also, the economic concerns overall, the impact of his tariffs on the markets, that definitely played a role in all of this. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Much more to learn about all of this morning. So, all right. The agreement between the U.S. and China, of course, having a ripple effect, as we just heard mentioned, around the world. The markets in Asia surging on the move. CNN's Mark Stewart joining us now from Beijing. I'm just curious about this because what we're hearing from one side here in the United States is that this is a major win, a major agreement, but there's a huge capitulation on the part of the United States here. How did this agreement come together so quickly?
Well, so I think a big part of it is just necessity, because look at the economic upheaval it's caused around the world. In the United States, there's been a lot of concern about supply chains. Here in China, manufacturing is beginning to take a hit. It doesn't look good when the world's first and second largest economies are fighting with each other. And then this door opened, and both sides felt it was ripe for conversation. And as we've seen, markets really like what they are seeing. We look at the big boards. We look at the United States and its U.S. stock futures. We're seeing gains across the board, including the S&P 500. That's important because that's where so many of our retirement accounts are based upon. And then here in Asia, as you mentioned, big gains as well. We saw the Hang Seng in Hong Kong up by more than 3%. But with all of this so-called celebration, if you will, there is a lot of caution. China's been very measured in its response. It's seen this very much as a first step, and that's reflected in some of the statements we are hearing from the country's leadership, including China's vice premier. Let's listen to some of his remarks from earlier in Geneva.
We're going to promote new development in the China-US trade and economic relations and inject more certainty and stability into the world economy. China's position towards this trade war has been clear and consistent, and that is, China doesn't want to fight a trade war because trade wars produce no winners. But if the US insists on forcing this war upon us, China will not be afraid of it and will fight to the end.
So perhaps the most important takeaway in all of this is that there is now a meaningful conversation Mark Stewart. Thank you so
Mr. Secretary, this is a 90-day pause. What comes next? Do you have plans to meet with your counterparts again?
Becky, as I said, the good thing is we had a plan, we had a process, now we have a meeting mechanism. We loosely preceded the Geneva mechanism, so I don't know where we'll meet again. A very agreeable meeting here. We had a lot of time over 2 days, so I would imagine that in the next few weeks we will be meeting again to get rolling.
try not to do